Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What's your true life story that no one will believe? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, I grew up with crazy, abusive parents. It was so bad, I'm lucky I had both so that there was one there to stop the other before they actually killed me. Anything more than pancakes for dinner was a luxury. When I was 10, my epilepsy diagnosis was devastating. A few years later, I was drinking very heavily and skipping more school than actually attending. One day I decided I wanted more from life and what I could get while living there. I left when I was 16 and moved 300 miles away to where I knew no one, so I could put my life on track. I stopped drinking, had no friends, so it's not like I could party. I worked for a year, then I enrolled and graduated high school. After that, I moved with a boy across the country when I was 19. 3 years into the relationship, broke up with him soon after, married his coworker 3 years later. That marriage did not last long. We were best friends who made the mistake of thinking it was more. We're still close friends. On Thursdays, we go for lunch, and on Wednesday evenings, he comes over to play video games. After the marriage ended, I went to college. Now I live with my boyfriend of 4 years. My family is still crazy, so I really limit my contact with them. Example, currently my mom and sisters have a restraining order against my father, who went crazy 3 years ago. I don't need one because I'm in another province. My mom hosts barbecues for family and friends, but has to go pick up my middle sister's kids because my sister had an affair and broke up the marriage of my mom's roommate. I do talk to my mom about once a week. It's really hard for me. She always tries to bring up my dad and play victim. It pisses me off. There were times he had me on the floor kicking my ribs in, and you did nothing. He never laid a hand on her. He called you and said he wanted to kill you. Boo, king who? I have a great job. Overpaid by about 12 grand a year, which is nice. I have no children and will continue to live a child-free life. My boyfriend now is fantastic. He really put me back together. I don't know how broken I was until I met him. I was raised to flinch when he reached for me, so it took a long time to stop. This has been a significant part of my life so far. I've accepted that people don't believe, and I joke about it, but I'm pretty sure I can connect with animals. Every time I meet a new pet, they always love me, and end up spending the whole time following me and lying on me. On multiple occasions, I've had wild animals come out of the forest and sniff, kinda hang out around me. And once in health class, my teacher was trying to get us to connect our heart centers to her dog at home, and she wanted to confirm we could do that by asking her dog a question and confirming the answer with her. I vividly described her entire home, including intricate details, and stunned the class when she confirmed my accuracy with photographs of her home. Well, the story begins with me going to the library after school to finish a project. Our library had a back room filled with 2 rows of computers separated by a shelf of assorted books. It was 30 minutes after school let out, and most everybody had left the library, except for me and this Indian kid. He was using a computer on the other side of the shelf. There was a small space between the shelves, so I was able to see him working on the computer. After about 10 minutes, I noticed him squirming a lot. I was confused but didn't think much of it. Then I saw him stand up and ejaculate into a book he pulled off the shelf behind him. I was in shock. As he walked out, he finally noticed me and hurried away, his cheeks flushed. I went and told my friends and even showed them the book in which he ejaculated in. Upon opening the book, we found the pages adhered together, as if someone had applied a generous amount of Elmer's glue directly in the center of the page. The story was so far-fetched that my friends didn't believe me and began joking that I had been the one to ejaculate in the book. Most of my friends have come to terms with the truth, but a few are still skeptical. When I was 24 or so, I was drinking at a small local bar. The owner was working that night, a pretty stout guy, and he caught an underage drinker at his bar. He roughed the kid up a bit, threw him outside, and literally put him on the ground 3 or 4 times before he went back inside, as the kid was drunk and being defiant. He was 18 or 19. He stayed outside a bit with his friends and smoked a cigarette. He was vowing vengeance, so I stayed and lit another smoke to see what came of it. He kept running his mouth and then took off in his truck with a determined look on his face. He returned to the entrance with his friend, frantically trying to dissuade him from doing something stupid. He returned with a pistol. This was a small bar, so no one was working the door. Drunk me put myself between this drunk kid and the door and began talking to him and gave him one of my cigarettes. I began trying to talk him down, and I was making some progress, but this kid was determined. Miraculously, after what seemed like days, I somehow talked him into giving me possession of the pistol. I then just kind of nodded at his friend, hoping he would understand my intentions, and his friend restrained him while I re-entered the bar and locked the door behind me and then the side entrance. I then informed the owner and everyone else to stay inside in case the kid had more weapons and called the police. They showed up, but the kid was long gone. So, drunk me may have managed to save a life or two. The people who were there might believe it, but those I know now wouldn't believe the story if I told them. My dad's family got tied in with the Teamsters, high up, Jimmy Hoffa high up. They were also pricks, racist, stuff like that. They hated my mom because her side of the family's all hard-working folk. Grandpa helped build the local church, great-aunt taught Latin, and was the town's first woman mayor. So my mom has 2 kids, my older brother and me. Turns out my dad had a brain tumor, inoperable. He hung around to make sure my mom delivered me and we were both okay. Then he died the day after I was born. Dad's family, pricks, decide they don't want my mom to raise their 2 heirs to the family name. So, my newly widowed mother has to get a lawyer. They tell her, no way will a judge take custody from a mother and give it to the grandparents. Then, they'd get some phone calls and change their tune. Suddenly, the pricks weren't being unreasonable. They hired new lawyers and made the same phone calls as before. Turns out, Teamsters had a reach far outside the auto industry. Hoffa Jr. was at my dad's funeral after all. Mom's family sees the writing on the wall, tells her to book, takes off across the country, cut off communication, and change names. Managed to make contact with a retired FBI desk jockey who gave her pointers on staying off the grid. We lived like that for a long time. I didn't even know what the deal was until years later because I was a newborn. The whole thing happened in the 80s and 90s. Now I have my mom's side last name and feel my dad would be more than okay with it. I don't have contact with my dad's side of the family for what they put my mother through. For some reason, I decided to take the bus to an Asian market on the other side of town to get a birthday gift for a Thai coworker. I can't remember what I specifically was looking for. It was the weekend. I slept in and thought about not going. I really didn't need to get this lady anything at all, so why bother? Next thing I know, I feel compelled to get dressed right away and catch the next bus. A voice in my head, my own voice, like I'm thinking to myself, not random schizophrenic voices, says, "You will meet a man on the bus." What? I even let out a loud laugh and declared unequivocally, "I have no desire to meet a man on the bus. I'm not that desperate, lol." So I hurry up, catch the bus, and at one of the stops, a guy got on who I was really good friends with in college. We lost touch in the 90s and hadn't seen each other in 12 years. I stared at him the entire bus ride because I couldn't believe it was really him. I considered him one of the best friends I'd ever had and always wondered what happened to him. We got off at the transit center, and I said hello. It was a nice reunion. He was dressed well and at one point mentioned his lease was up, so he was looking for a place to live. I told him my fiancée and I had just broken up, so my couch was free if he couldn't find a place right away and needed a place to crash. He let me stay with him for a while when I left my abusive husband years ago, so I felt I owed him. A week later, he calls me and asks to meet me at a bar. I get there and he's already drunk. He admits that he just ran away from rehab and needed a place to stay. Ugh. I had no idea what I was getting into when I agreed. It turned out that since we had lost contact, he had become a chronic alcoholic and had been homeless for years. I let him stay with me on and off for 2 years between numerous stints in various rehabs. I'm not in any way spiritual and don't know what to think about the voice telling me I'd meet a man on the bus, as if this would be a really good thing I couldn't miss out on. Those 2 years were horrible. If I hadn't taken the bus, we never would have met again. I gained nothing from the experience other than bitterness and losing empathy for the homeless. Other than using me for 2 years, he got nothing out of it either. Why was I led into a negative experience instead of a positive one? Why haven't I been led to a decent guy or winning lottery numbers? LOL. The story of how I broke my knees in 3rd grade summer. It comes off like a children's movie. I lived on a teeny tiny one-way street, and up that street from my house was a huge oak tree that had a branch that spanned across the entire street. There was a little boy. We'll call him Tommy, because that's what we called him back then. He was the standard antagonist in a movie about an empowered girl. He constantly did the "you can't do that, you're a girl" thing to me, the biggest tomboy on the block. One day he goads me into climbing the tree. I climb the majestic oak tree. Tommy follows me up. I get to the branch that spans the street. Tommy stands close behind me and pretty much forces me onto the branch. I sit on the branch. Tommy pushes at me so he can sit too. I get edged into the middle of the street and freak out a little because the branch is wobbly. Tommy does the super asshole thing of rocking back and forth on the branch to make it wobbly. I freak out. He starts jumping up and down in his sitting position. I fall out of the tree and land on the hood of a boat of a car driven by a poor man who was going the 15 mph speed limit and definitely didn't expect a 9-year-old to fall knees first directly in front of his eyes. Went to the hospital. Tommy's parents paid for some of my bills. I ended up in 2 full leg casts and in a wheelchair for the rest of the summer and first semester of the school year. I had a blast that summer, though. I played a pivotal role in numerous intense battles, and I guess I earned cred with Tommy because we actually became friends after that. When I was 16, I got pretty heavily into smoking weed. I was buying it off a guy at my school, and one day he came up to me with a knife saying I owed him something like $600, which I knew wasn't true because I had a shitty job and was terrified of debt. So there was no way I would have told him I'd pay him later, especially for weed and even more so for $600 worth. Obviously, I refused to pay him and told him I'd never take 60 grams of weed without paying. He then told me to look out next time I see him because I better be ready to pay then. About 2 weeks later, this happened over a summer holiday, hence, I didn't see him often. He and some of his friends came after me. I tried to run away, but ended up not being able to because they were really damn fast, so I ended up fighting them. This is part that people find hard to believe. See, at 16 I wasn't some scrappy kid like most of my peers. I was about 6'3" and sitting around 270 pounds with fairly little fat on me. Not exactly an all-star runner because I smoked and didn't do much cardio, but I was pretty strong, and I knew how to fight. I fought all 3 of his friends hand to hand like a scene from a goddamn movie, knocking out 2 of them, smashing them against the wall, and hitting the other one so hard he wouldn't get back up. Probably could, maybe just scared. So then the dealer realized his friends couldn't fight me, so he pulled his knife. I can fight people hand to hand, but not when they have a knife because I'm not some kung fu master, and I'll be stabbed. I started to run again and got just around the block when I heard a rumbling noise, a scrape, feet hitting the ground, something hard hitting someone's head, and a "God damn it." I turned around and a very good friend of mine, who happened to be skateboarding by, saw what was going on and hit the dealer in the back of the head with his skateboard, knocking him unconscious. Isn't it funny sometimes? I've seen this happen with friends of friends and acquaintances where 2 people are so similar in behavior and personality that you're like, wow, these people would be, peas in a pod. But when they are certain personalities that tend toward like the narcissistic approach to life that other narcissists, like, they hate each other. And even though they exude the same behavior, or exhibit the same behavior, they will criticize that behavior, yet do the same things that they criticize. It's like, I don't know. You guys have to know what I'm talking about, right? I've had this experience happen multiple times throughout my life, so this story obviously brought it up, and run as far away from those people as possible, because that is a bad place to be. Was a manager for Domino's Pizza back in the day. One of the most memorable things happened during the lunch shift at Fort Washington, Maryland. I shit you not, an extremely irate G. Gordon Liddy entered the store, yelling about a driver he saw drinking a beer while driving. The driver had apparently thrown the bottle out the window of his car when finished, and G. Gordon fished the bottle out of the woods and brought it into the store. He was on a rampage and asked if I knew who he was. I did. He demanded I fire the driver immediately and said I'm not promising anything until I talk to him when he gets back from the delivery and get his side of the story. When he came back, I got really close to him, and sure enough I could smell beer in his breath. When I fired him, he sounded surprised and said he didn't know that wasn't allowed. I was hiking in Nepal alone for a month. While visiting a temple, I watched and participated in a cremation ceremony where an old lady was burned. After the party dispersed, I leaned in for a closer look, and while looking into the eyes of her smoldering skull, it exploded like a stick of dynamite. In a daze, and with my ears ringing, I kind of wandered off and noticed a large monkey strolling by. As I was watching him, he turned and noticed me staring, and with a screech and a look that could only mean, "What the are you looking at?" ran over and leaped at me while baring his teeth. He grabbed onto my arm with incredible strength. I flung him off, only to find myself in a monkey death match, circling and juking at each other, trying to taunt one another into retreating. I managed to pick up a rock and threw it at him, striking him directly between the eyes, which caused him to flee. A local man then advised me in his best broken English, "Please, sir, don't look in the eyes of the monkey." I was at a party having a pretty bad time after I just split with my girlfriend. The most popular girl at my brother's school randomly approached me and asked me what was wrong. I said nothing, but she didn't drop it. We talked, she smoked me out. I didn't even smoke at the time, but she was so attractive that I would probably have done anything she requested. And we just talked the whole night. I swore to my friends that I would make her my girl one day. Sadly, 3 years went by and I just never saw her again. That is, until I start my first day of training at the new job. The girl I was talking to during orientation seems really friendly and super cute. She warns me not to a certain coworker who just happens to share the name of the girl I vowed to make my girlfriend. I laugh it off as a coincidence, for it's a somewhat common name. As I'm leaving orientation, who do I see walking in? None other than her. We look at each other, semi-awestruck, since it's been 3 years. My GM introduces us and asks if we've met. I try to lighten the mood with a joke, saying, "Unfortunately," in jest. I was totally kidding, but the look of sadness on that girl's face was something I'll never forget. I quickly said sorry, I was just kidding, and that was that. A couple of months go by and we start dating. Things are great, but I realize this girl has been through hell and back, no joke, marred by her own father and at least one other family member. We dated for a good while and eventually she ends up cheating on me. I break up with her, she eventually cheats on her current boyfriend, with me a couple of times, and I realize I need to get myself out of that situation. I break ties with her and move on. One day the girl I met at work, we'll call her Sarah, who warned me not to get involved with the girl, we'll call her Elizabeth, I dated, starts wanting to hang out. We become really close, and she tells me how she and Elizabeth used to be best friends, but that she was the pathological liar, which, granted, she kinda was, and eventually we start dating. We dated for almost 5 months. At this point I'm really digging this girl. She tells me she's in love with me, a little too soon for my taste, and she even starts talking about kids. One day I was going to take her with me to enjoy a meteor shower. She ended up bailing and not picking up her phone. I go to watch it by myself. On my way back home, I see her walking with some tool I know at around 2 a.m. I'm utterly saddened by this, but she has no idea I saw her. I asked her what happened last night, and she really tried to guilt trip me, which made no sense. Eventually, I asked her if she was with anyone last night, which she avidly denies. When I tell her that I saw her, she starts crying and tells me that she needs her privacy, and I'm such a bad person for assuming that hanging out with somebody at 2 a.m. was a red flag. We break up, and then I meet a mutual friend of theirs who tells me they're the same fucking person. Not literally, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. They used to be best friends till they started being the same guys and hated each other. I just happened to be the last one because Elizabeth got arrested and fired for drug-related reasons, and Sarah, who I can almost for sure say also cheated on me, is probably going to get fired for ties to favoritism bullshit with the newest manager. My friend had just told me that Star Trek The Next Generation had hired this hot woman to play the Borg Queen, and this boosted TNG's ratings. Later that week, I stopped at Fred Meyer, a supermarket on West Burnside in PDX, entering past this one 10 or less checkout. That was the first thing you see. I noticed she was on the TV guide cover. Very attractive blonde, shapely, some Borg stuff over her eye, nice. So, I get my staples, and then I see something I've never seen before in a supermarket, ever. This one checkout aisle has a sign that says, "Cashier in training, please be patient." And who is behind the register, in plain clothes? Say it with me, Jerry, 7 of 9, Ryan. There's simply no doubt about it. I actually became angry at this moment, because I do not like it when people think they're getting one over on me. Anyway, I wait in her line, with the rudest scowl on my face. Why? What's wrong with me? Finally, I ask myself, do people ever tell you that you look like someone famous? Who do you think I look like? And with as much authority and confidence as I can communicate through my eyes, I point to the rack of TV guides literally next to her gorgeous head and say, "I think you're her." She did not respond. I have no way of confirming this story. I've searched extensively online for confirmation, and of course, I'd never seen the same cashier, nor that absurd sign requesting my patience. It's infuriating. I'm not too good at telling stories, but this one some of you will find hard to believe. My friend was having with an ex-Playboy bunny. He was 17. I don't know how old she was. Fairly attractive. Anywho, one day, 3 of my friends and I, Mr. Lucky included, were hanging out and such, and then we wanted to go get drinks. The lady tagged along, and she was already a little tipsy. So 4 young boys and a drunk woman inside one car driving around a small town. On our way back, she wanted to make out with all of us. No joke. We obviously accepted. First was the oldest friend, then me, then the other 2. She gave us tips on how to be better and whatnot. It was pretty intense. We came back to the house, and I turned my head back to say something to her, and she started giving me this giddy smile. I was confused on why she was acting that way. Then I saw everyone's face. We all had smeared lipstick all over our lips. Our friend's mom did not know about the actions of Mrs. March, and Mr. Lucky and 4 boys were about to walk in a house with Joker lips on. I quickly let everyone know what they looked like, and we found a way to hide our evidence. She then wanted to do a threesome with 2 of us, but she sobered up and thought twice about it. It was a very interesting night. Friends thought I was possessed by an evil spirit. I don't know what happened, but it was weird. Lost control of my body for several minutes. I could see but not process the data or think anything. All I heard was a sound like blood rushing in my ears. Friends said the whole time I was flexed in my seat, looking around the room and glaring like I wanted to murder everything. Eventually, one of them had the guts to return to the room. They were all peeking from the kitchen anyway. He walked over to me, waved his hand in front of me, and said something to the others. I didn't recognize him or hear anything he said. Sometime later, I had my first thought, which was my girlfriend's name at the time. After that, I regained my composure. Despite being extremely exhausted, despite my exhaustion, my friends insisted I stay awake. After an hour or so, I shook it off. It never happened again. P.S. Now I'm a scientific kind of guy, so I figure something weird must have happened in my brain and then fixed itself. Oh, And for the record, there was no drug use or anything. When I was in 8th grade, I found out I had an older brother who was in the same grade as me and at the same school, but no one would tell me who. So I began treating everyone like they were my brother because I wanted us to be friends by the time we could both know. The cycle goes on for about 2 years. At this point, I've had my nights of crying. Then during my sophomore year of high school, I asked my dad, who's my half-brother, about his past as a man whore. Turns out the guy was already a really close friend, go figure. But my mom told me it wasn't my place to tell him. So I continued to just be friends with him and go chill at his house like we'd done for years. His mom knew we were brothers the whole time and decided not to let on that I knew he and I were brothers until Christmas of senior year. I tell her what I've been through, and all she has to say is that she's sorry for it. She decides to wait until 3 weeks before graduation to tell him that I'm his brother. She chose to wait until 3 weeks before one of the most significant milestones for a teenager. He had called me the night he found out, but I was already sleeping. The second I saw my phone that morning, I knew what was up. He couldn't have called that late unless it was something this important. At first, nothing was that bad. We started to hang out a bit more, but it still felt like we were just friends instead of brothers. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that if our parents had been honest from the start, we would have had a different life. He would have stuck with a shitty, verbally abusive male guardian the whole time, and I could have had the brother I had been praying for since I was 7. My parents were missionaries overseas during my senior year of high school, and I attended a boarding school run by the mission located on the edge of a native. They wore nothing but gourds and lived in Grass Huts Village in the middle of nowhere. At the boarding school, we earned money as a class by running a small candy store, selling to other students, and we even carried a few items to sell to the natives. One day, a native came up who spoke no English and was animatedly waving his gun and pointing to something behind me. I didn't understand him and asked a classmate who spoke his language to step in. The conversation got very heated, and the man finally left after 15 or 20 minutes. Apparently, the basically naked native wanted to buy me as a wife. I'm worth 2 guns and a pig. He was very upset that my white brother wouldn't accept his price, and I was told not to walk anywhere alone for a while, just in case he decided to take me anyway. Cultists were chasing me through the backwoods of Tennessee. So, some friends and I used to like to explore back roads around where we live. We were on a gravel road that had a local legend of being haunted when we turned down a trail to turn around. The trail was narrow, so we had to go a ways back to find a place where we could get the truck turned around. The tiny-ass narrow gravel road opened up to a wide 2-lane gravel road, and a sign on the side said something along the lines of, "Now entering redacted Christian encampment." We pulled into the first little driveway on the path and started turning around. There were some people standing around, and they started pointing and yelling. Then they hopped in a car and started following us out. We realized they were following us at this point, so we swiftly leave the area. At our fastest, we were doing 70 on a little narrow gravel road, and they were keeping pace behind us. Once we hit pavement, I upped the speed to about 100 and left them in the dirt. We dove into a marina on the way back to town, parked, killed the lights, and ducked, pretending to be a random truck in their parking lot. They swiftly passed us at a speed of approximately 90 miles per hour. We waited a few more minutes, then proceeded down the road. As we passed the gas station a few minutes later, they were all standing around the car talking and then noticed us driving by. They pointed and got back in the car, but we were long gone by the time they left the gas station. They never did find me. At least, I hope not. I got held at gunpoint by the president of the Alumni Association of my high school when I was 17. My friend and I were playing Nerf Assassin free range. I had a black spray-painted Nerf gun. I'm fucking badass. I was chilling at my friend's house in a borderline shady part of town. I was contacted by a mole I had in the other nerd team that they were sending a squad to attack me. Whatever. Still got 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, a friend says, we should leave. Yeah, walk outside. It's nighttime, by the way. A black SUV is creeping up slowly behind. No big deal. Walk faster. The car speeds up. Dip set. Jump a wrought iron fence and tear my BDBAM hoodie running through backyards to get to my car. They discovered that the fence had been staked out. Can't go back. Call my squad leader. Be there in 20. Lay low. 10-4. Find a lovely alleyway. Motion detecting lights go off. No biggie. Chill for 15. Squad leader calls. At the exact extract point. Jet. A car pulls up behind him. 10 seconds later, the man jumps out of the car. I'm running to the squad leader. The man sees a black nerd with a gun. Pulls out what seemed like an M9-ish weapon. I don't know weapons. You fuckers aren't going anywhere. Sits me and my friends down on the porch and says the alarm at his wife's dance studio was set off. Behind me a sign says, wife's dance studio. Oops. My friend is saying he can't detain us. Dude's got a gun pointed at us. He can detain us. Convince him we were playing a game. He sees they were teenagers. Asks what high school we go to. Insert high school. Shit, I'm the president of the alums at insert high school. Holy shit. Start talking. He knows the squad leader's parents. Asks me my last name. Finds out he went to grammar school with my aunt for 8 years. What the... Leave on a good note. Still in the area. The squad leader pulls over. He tells us to wait in his car while he gets some ice cream. Duh. Mang, let's go. Enough has happened tonight. Now we're Gucci. My friend and I are not getting out. We were still sitting in the car when the enemy squad spotted us. Locked doors. 5 people surrounded the car. Try to explain what just happened and that we're done for tonight. LOL. No. Nice story. Trapped in the car for 45 minutes until our squad leader can talk to their squad leader and call a 12-hour truce. My entire life story. Physically abused all childhood, grew up in my teens to be physically stronger than even above average men. I'm female, 300 pounds of concrete mix. Let me carry that for you. Also insanely smart. Worked as a logger, punched a bear in the face, and done a lot of crazy things that no one could seem to think I could happen to one person. Just as I was exiting my teens, I became mysteriously ill, going from a 210 muscular build to 110 and not being able to even stand by myself. Because of this, one day I fell out of the shower and got brain damage from my head breaking on the toilet. No idea how long I was on the floor when I passed out. Then I got pregnant, which saved my life. Turns out, just like people are gluten intolerant, no real cases, not assholes, I am intolerant to most plant matter. Some little Debbies are made with enough plant stuff to cause hours and days of unbearable pain and puking. And here I am, debating resigning from my job and cutting my child support payments so I can get Phenigrim, $250 a month, and see doctors for my medication and to follow up on my condition, which will kill me by the time I'm 30 because it's impossible to cut everything out of my diet that makes my intestines rip themselves to shreds unless I get pregnant again, and WIC gives me feeding tubes like they did last time.